Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Dave. This is the Tuesday, July 8th episode of VibeWire. I'm just going to talk today a little bit about the latest AI news and go through a demo of one of the latest AI tools you can use. We've got a couple of big news items today that I just thought it would be good to just mention in case you haven't seen the news yet. The number one news story, I think, right now is that Grok4 is going to release in a live stream. Elon Musk just announced this yesterday afternoon. So it'll be 8 p.m. Pacific time, live stream. I'm definitely going to be on it. It'll be interesting to see how, I think everybody's wondering whether Grok is going to blow all the other models out of the water, or is it going to kind of be like the previous releases where everyone gets really excited and then it's not bad. I'm definitely rooting for XAI and Grok. I think they excel at some things, but there's other areas. I don't use it in my day-to-day coding workflow. Had issues with it doing tool calling for running agents and things. So definitely going to be interesting to see what this latest model is able to do. And then another announcement, Bolt.new has announced that your tokens are going to start to roll over. So and this is something any service I use, if I have to use all my tokens or credits by the end of the month, is kind of frustrating. So I think they're the first ones to do this. This is as an AI service where they give you a certain allotment of tokens at the beginning, and if you don't use them by the end of the month, then all right. So moving over to the demo section, today I wanted to talk about the XMCP.dev. This is a MCP tool. It's a new framework that allows you to easily create and deploy an MCP server. I've talked about a couple of them in the past. I have another video on Smithery.dev and Cloudflare's latest MCP offerings. This is a new tool that allows you to easily create a MCP server and actually deploy it to Vercel. Does a lot of nice things for you, and it's really easy to get started with. And so I thought I'd just run through a quick demo of how you can use it, how I've used it so far. Some idea, this will be a quick demo, so not doing anything too fancy, but I'll throw out some ideas for how I would use this in the future. All right, so I've created a new cursor project here, and the first thing I wanted to show is just how you would get started with this. So they've added a nice, easy command line tool to basically like a Create React app, if you ever use that for MCP servers. So I'm just in a brand new folder right here. We'll just run this and it'll create the whole directory structure for me. And we'll just give it the basic name. And then you have a choice right here. So if you want to run it on a server or have it run locally. And so this really depends on how you want to serve your MCP server. If you want to just use it for yourself, or if you're people who you think might want to use this, whether they're your customers or not, are comfortable installing it locally, or if you want to serve it over an HTTP connection. And this tool does, because it deploys to Vercel, gives you a really easy way to do that. So let's go with that. And then so you can see, do I want to add a Vercel deployment? Sure. And there we go. So it just created this new folder for us with some source code. Created a default README. We've got our Vercel config here. And so you can see the basic structure that it sets up for you is it's got this source tools directory, and we have a greet.ts tool here. And so the way that this works is to add a new tool, you just basically add a new file in here. For example, we can say, in addition to the greet tool, let's add a hello tool as well, and copy this over. And let's change some of those metadata. Just change it to hello and save that. And so basically we have two tools here. They do exactly the same thing, but we'll see in a second when we run this that we'll have two instead of the one. So it makes it really easy to kind of add new tools. It gives you a nice structured way of doing that. So I really like that. And I like the fact that it sets up the whole directory for you. You really don't need to know anything about MCP to get this running. And so at this point, we can just do npm run dev. And so now it's running locally. So let's copy that over. And then let's also start up a new model context protocol inspector. Oh, I'm already running it in another project. Let me just cancel that real quick. Okay. And we'll replace this URL with the one that we just got. Connect, list tools, and there's our 2 tools right here. So really easy to add additional tools. This one should work. So it greets me. This does the same thing. So really nice, simple, easy way to get something up and running. Okay, so one other thing to note here is you can see that with each one of these tools, we have this metadata constant that's being exported. And so we changed the name of the tool right here. There's some other additional information in here that I'm going to get passed to the LLM that invoking this tool. So you can add some additional information for the LLM to understand how to use the tool. So this is pretty nice and simple to implement, and they've abstracted that nicely. Another thing they've abstracted nicely is if we can add in some authentication middleware here by just adding a middleware.ts file. And they have an example of this for us if we switch back over to their web page. So under the middleware section here, you can copy that out just as an example. Paste that in here. I don't have any custom authentication header validation, so I'm going to just take that out and see if we actually have a auth header or not. And then let's also console log our auth header just so we can see what that looks like. And so if we run this now, I barely had to do any work at all. And let's switch back over to our MCP inspector. Same endpoint. If we try connecting to it now, we get this connection error. And if we switch over to our MCP logs, we'll see that auth header got logged as undefined. And so it returned this 401 error to us. So we can easily change that by, let's just pass through an auth header, just ASDF, and try connecting again, and now we can connect. And you can see we're logging that bearer token there. So obviously don't implement this as auth, but it gives you a really nice easy hook for authentication and plugging that into whatever auth system you want to hook up in here. So now in just a couple of minutes we have our tool calls and we have our middleware for authentication very, very easily. One thing that this is missing that I don't know how, I don't really see too many MCP servers that implement this. I think this fits the use case for about 90% of MCPs, but the 3 things you can return with an MCP are the prompts, tools, and resources. And so far, as I'm sure they'll add this if they have demand, that there's no way to add resources or prompts as far as I can tell so far, but they've made it really easy to add tools, which is kind of the bread and butter of MCP. And another thing, I should have mentioned this up top, but it is a fully open source tool. So if you go to their website, they've got their GitHub right here. And you can contribute, you can see the changes that are happening. This is a fully, as far as I can tell, fully open source tool. They've got all their scripts right here. Oh, not there. So packages, yeah. Here. So here's the Create XMCP app that we use to set up our projects. You also have the XMCP tool that's actually doing the running of this. So if we go to our package, you'll see every time I do npm run dev, it's calling this XMCP tool. So if you want to see what that's doing, all the code is here, which is really nice. Okay, one last thing I wanted to show you was on the Vercel deployment. I've already gone ahead and done the Vercel deployment in another project, so I don't want to run through all of that here, but if you go to the docs and you go to the Vercel, you'll see it's basically that straightforward. I will go through a couple of the gotchas real quick in case you're not that familiar with Vercel. Just a couple of things to keep in mind here when using the MCP inspector and calling into your MCP server from there after it's been deployed. So we'll take a look at that right now. Okay, so after you run this XMC build Vercel command, what it's going to do is it'll set up your existing project for Vercel deployment, and I'll switch over to my example of that. So this is the deployment where I ran that command, and it adds the .vercel folder there. So from here, all you need to do is build it and deploy via Vercel. You sign into your Vercel CLI the way you would any other application and deploy it. Once it's deployed, you'll see something like this. And so they actually have a little bit of UI for if you to actually navigate to that page. So mine's deployed to xmcdemo.vercel.app. And when you click on that endpoint, this is the actual endpoint you'll call from your inspector or from your LLM. And we're just using the inspector today just because it's easier to demonstrate. So let me just paste that in there. And we don't need any authentication. Should reconnect and let's check out. Yeah, so my other server, I didn't add the extra tool, so we just have the one tool here, but this is actually, you can see, connected to Vercel. This is the same exact deployed version of the tool, running the same code, and works the same way. But now anybody can use it, which is really nice. All right, and just one small gotcha here when you're deploying this to Vercel. If you're familiar with Vercel, then this probably isn't an issue for you. There's a difference between the preview and prod environments. So if you try to take this URL for the preview URL and copy this over, paste that in there, add a protocol, and try to call it via this URL, it's going to fail. And the reason for that, let's see if we can see that in the response. So you can see it, that quick loading method where it tried to authenticate, because this is the development server or the preview URL that we're using here. It's trying to authenticate us, and we're not, and we get this method not allowed error. So there's an easy way around that. You can either disable that if you want to do all of your testing in a preview environment, or you can go into your Vercel settings over here and go into deployment protection. And so this is where you would just turn that off if you're not worried about it. If you want to make sure that's on, you can set up a production bypass for automation right in here, and so we can and that basically overrides the authentication requirement. And so we would just need to append that onto our query here. So we have to append this Vercel protection bypass and then pass our token like that. And when we connect, we're able to connect via our preview URL now, and we'll see our tools and everything the same way that we did before. So there you go, quick Vercel lesson and a really cool MCP tool that just released today. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot. Please like and subscribe if this is helpful for you, if you're interested, if you'd like to see more of this content, and we'll see you next time.